The best way for me to talk about my own foray into liberation theology is to revisit this time when I only caught glimpses of it in academic research. I didn't quite understand what I was seeing and reading at first, but what I did know was that there are people in the world who consider liberation theology as dangerous. But dangerous for who? In the 1980s, the Central Intelligence Agency of the United States, the CIA, became interested in liberation theology in the context of Latin American revolution. According to a secret paper declassified in 2018 called Liberation Theology, Religion, Reform, and Revolution, the CIA reports that, quote, the aspect of such theologies of liberation that we believe most threatening to third world countries is the activist orientation of its practitioners, who urge the oppressed to seek a just life now, not in the hereafter, and to use violence to accomplish that goal. On top of that document, there are two other documents that outline liberation theology, at least through the perspective of the CIA. And those two documents are both authored by researchers in the CIA, and they're called A New Inter-American Policy for the 80s and the Santa Fe Document. The United States military, being a dominant global power then and now, tends to focus on how liberation theology loosens their control or ability to exert influence in various Latin American countries, as well as Asian countries like the Philippines. Just from these three documents, I was able to understand that liberation theology is a lens to view religion not as a tool of the oppressor, but as a means by which the oppressed people can seek justice, seek a just life now. In the context of domestic and international social justice movements, there is this emergence of a council called Vatican II of the Roman Catholic Church, and it suggests that religion, and God for that matter, is most concerned with the poor and the oppressed. Father Gustavo Gutierrez, a strong Catholic voice in the movement and author of the book called A Theology of Liberation, used the term poverty to describe these people. He defined poverty as individuals who experience an early and unjust death. The houseless, the imprisoned, the sick, people who don't have access to basic human needs, like clean drinking water. Father Gutierrez's definition of poverty sought to be an expansive term for people who struggle under the weight of oppression. This laid the groundwork for liberation theology's core message to spread throughout Latin America and even here in the United States. Black liberation theology, coined by the Reverend Dr. James Cone from Union Theological Seminary, aimed to identify the role of liberation theology in the lives of Black American brothers, sisters, and siblings, referencing the ongoing legacies of slavery and segregation in America. Although the liberatory function of theology can be located across different countries and cultures, there are these distinct differences. Liberation theology in the United States is very different from understanding liberation theology in Latin America, and different still in South Africa, Korea, the Philippines, and India. Father Michael Amaladoss, an Indian-born liberation theologian, studied 3 specific liberation theology movements in Asia: the Minyoung theology in Korea, the theology of struggle in the Philippines, and the Dalit theology in India. Minyoung theology was born from the exploitation of workers during the post-colonial control of Korea by Japan. After World War II, the country transitioned to an industrialized society, breaking off into 2 separate regions, North Korea and South Korea. The Church of Korea and their theologians began to popularize the term Minyoung to describe those who are oppressed. Women became Minyoung when they are dominated by men. Working class people became Minyoung when they are not treated and compensated fairly. The term is a point of unification and causes liberation theology to thrive in Korea. In the Philippines, Father Louis Henchanova gave a talk in 1982 where he noted the presence of a theology of struggle in the Philippines and the socio-political environment that fosters further division between the rich and the poor. Father Amaladoss characterizes the theology of struggle as a moment when oppressed Filipino citizens do not have a fully formed idea of what liberation looks like, but are able to create religious communal spaces in which they can collectively talk about their own struggles and suffering. This liberative work is important in order to develop both community and solidarity. In India, the presence of a caste system separates its citizens into various levels of privilege and opportunity in society. The lowest of these categories is a caste system, is a caste class that's reserved for a class of people called the Dalits. The Dalit within the caste system are often poor, uneducated, and rarely have the ability to live dignified lives. Father Amaladoss, focusing specifically on Christian Dalits, identifies the Christian God as a God who serves Dalits. Dalits being known as servants in society, they were able to relate to a God that served them. Often, Christian Dalits cite the mistreatment of the poor, the sick, the marginalized in the Bible, and also Jesus' presence in their lives. So whether it is a rallying point, a common ground for which community and solidarity can grow, or the revelation of sacred stories that instill hope and inspiration, Christian liberation theology breathes life to the possibility of a just world. Amaladoss also makes the point that the concept of liberation theology is present within all major faith traditions. He shares the same notion with Swami Agnivesh, who belongs to a movement within Hinduism called Arya Samaj, a reform movement created by Swami Dayanand Sarasvati. And I'm quoting Amaladoss when I say that Agnivesh thinks that all religions have a social and religious liberative message in their formative stages, but lose the liberative thrust as they become hierarchical and institutional. Religions then become instruments in the hands of the oppressors. The mainstream notions of Buddhism will have us believe that the practice is centered on renouncing the world. And while this is an oversimplified caricature of Buddhism, while this oversimplified caricature of Buddhism may have truth in it, Amaladoss also studied the presence of Buddhist monks in political life and Buddhist social activists. In the Buddhist tradition, he notes that the Buddha is seen as the compassionate one, And in the Mahayana tradition, he is honored as a bodhisattva who forgoes his own liberation in order to assure liberation for all. And now, Buddhism in the Mahayana tradition does not ask individuals to forgo their own liberation, but to take active steps to understand one's self in relationship to the world around them. And in this way, liberation is a product of one's compassion towards yourself and towards others. Much like Buddhism, Confucianism also concerns itself with how behavior can impact the relationships within society. The notion of ritualized behavior is the core principle that encourages individuals to learn the proper etiquette in order to live harmoniously with others, and in turn, build a trusting, just, and equitable society. The presence of liberation theology in various countries, cultures, and faith traditions speaks to its universality. Liberation theology provides a platform for people to consider what justice means and how it can be achieved. As individuals engage in political discourse, they are forced to ask the questions: who is being oppressed? How can we work together to create an equitable society? What actions do we need to take in order to make that change a reality? As the world continues to grapple with issues of injustice, an understanding and engagement with liberation theology becomes essential. More importantly, liberation theology is a lens in which the oppressed people of the world can see their own struggles. Recognize how the struggle is a universal one that can be overcome. It is a framework by which people can process their own experiences against the backdrop of revolution and justice-seeking work. Liberation theology is an enduring global movement. It reveals to us the best of religion, the parts that show us that securing life and liberty for all people sits at the center of faith. It is a reminder that religion can hold us captive if we allow it. And that is also what we can use to set ourselves free if we allow it. Amen and blessed be.